What is up, Future Life TV, and welcome to your very, very special Aries new moon ceremony. This is Apollodite, and tonight we are writing solo. Usually we have the Peace Stealer, but unfortunately he will not be here tonight because he is actually with the Leo King and with Craig, who are actually about to race as we speak. So let's wish them all good luck, because this is going to be, this is a perfect opportunity for competition, actually. So I think we got delayed, but welcome one and all to your very special Aries new moon ceremony. And if you are here, congratulations and thank you all. It's very appreciated. We really appreciate the love, but this is going to be, shout out to everyone in the chat right now. I'm just pulling it up now. We got Jamie, we got Alex, we got Rachel, we got Julia, we got Lori. Thank you all for being here. But yeah, this is a very, very powerful shift, I feel. And yeah, by Dark Twin, there's definitely going to be a lot of separation since this Aries energy is very, very self-motivated. And so this is definitely going to be the time for you to, we definitely got Kobe. Oh, Lori, that's, Mike tries when he can, but we love him regardless. The union energy, yeah, very intense, but it's very important that everyone understands. So that's actually a good message that I kind of want to bring up this ceremony, because it's not going to be based on the twins, but there is going to be a message. So welcome everybody. Thank you all for being here. Thank you for the likes, comments, sharing, and subscribing. It really helps us. And we are turning into High Vibe TV very, very shortly. So stay tuned. But yeah, and very appropriate that we're getting ready to do so in the final innings of this Aries season. And even as we speak, currently the moon is 23 degrees, so it's just finishing its square to Pluto as we speak. So this is also going to be a full moon of a declaration of independence, if you will. Did I say full moon or new moon? Anyway, regardless, the next few days and moving into next week, it's going to be very intense. There's going to be a lot of shifts, and there's going to be a lot of transformation in the way that we go about life forever. And so this new moon is, it technically started and technically happened this morning, so it's technically over, but I mean, we're still here in this energy, and it's very, very lively. And I'm curious, is anybody else really experiencing a lot of throat respiratory issues? Because this full moon, or rather new moon, which feels like a full moon, is really bringing about a lot of energy, especially in the head and in the throat. So interference, ooh, of course, always. There always is. Let me just want to double check something. Okay, cool. Yeah, Stacy, I've been waking up at weird hours in the night for no reason too. It's so weird. Yeah, and it's funny because with the energy right now, it's very specifically on the throat. It's interesting. A heat. I'm not sure what you mean by that, Jamie. And and it's currently starting to rain now here. Interesting. But yeah, this is going to be a very interesting new moon. So if we just take into consideration what the Aries new moon means, it's the first new moon of the lunar cycle, technically speaking. But this one is very interesting since this is the final new moon in between the full moon in Libra, which is only possible when the moon's in Aries. And so very, very intense stuff as we are preparing to let go of the old. Because remember, as the moon's going to move through the first 6 signs before it gets to Libra, this deals with you. And so this is going to be sort of a trial run from this point on, moving into next week for sure. Especially as the moon will move into Cancer, this is going to be the time. And what we're going to do this ceremony is to really initiate this warrior-like spirit. You want to be a savage. And this is difficult for me, considering that I'm a Mars in Libra. And so I really, I try to be polite, but this is not the time to be polite. This is not the time to be cordial if you are losing and sacrificing your self-respect. You want to maintain a sense of a warrior, and that doesn't mean you have to be barbaric, but you do have to maintain a sense of pride, character, and integrity. Yeah, very interesting. Thank you all for sharing your stories. I love it. And if you're here now in the live chat, thank you for being here. And even if you are not live, this is still very important and relevant, and the information will still apply, and the ceremony will still be just as relevant. And so everyone's good. Just want to make sure, because with Mercury still in Pisces, it still feels like a retrograde. And since I am a moon in Pisces, this energy is very, 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 very interesting. I'm noticing a lot of hypocrisy within people, but to be honest, it's within everyone. And so I feel like this is a very important message to remember that your truth is your truth. It's not other people's truths. And likewise, their truths are not your own. So this is the time to be not living single per se, but living on your own terms, because there is definitely going to be a very, very powerful shift in relationships. And I don't like to focus too much on the notion of specific name connections, but this is very, very soulmate-like energy. What's up, Tanya? Thank you all for being here. New job, yeah. This is no polite, this is war. I feel like a lot of people, and including myself, have felt the sense of, on one hand, there's been a conflict within me because there's this sense of understanding that this is war, but at the same merit, there's this notion of not wanting to lose your humanity. But you have to remember that on the battlefield, it's kill or be killed. And even in, the Serengeti, the lioness tears the gazelle. And so there's this notion of having to understand that life does have a competitive side to it. The primal nature of animals is competitive. Even plants are competitive with one another, where certain plants will only grow after a forest fire because there's no competition around them whatsoever. But this is definitely going to be this notion of focusing on yourself, and how the relationship ties in is going to be very accented by a lot of what Venus in Pisces is doing. And tying into next week a little bit, since Venus in her exaltation in Pisces is going to conjunct Neptune, which is her higher octave. And so moving into next week, we're going to have a lot of challenges, since the sun's going to square to Saturn, Pluto, and the nodes. Jupiter's going to retrograde, and even Mercury is going to square Jupiter. And so there's sort of like this battle of the gods, if you will, that's preparing. And so this is really talking about a moment where we have to do what's best for us. And looking at the chart, and I'll show you once we get there, but all of the signs, or rather all of the planets, are aspecting something, even if it's minor, except for Mars, who's kind of free-floating, but that's besides the point. Since Mars, it's interesting, since Mars, funny enough, is in a spot where he's very neutral, and this is one reason why I think a lot of us are having throat issues, since Mars actually rules the nose, and since he's in Gemini, which is mercurial and ruled by the lungs. Ooh, that was interesting. Part of my screen is changing colors. This is very weird and interesting, and it's not a shadow. And I'm not kidding right now, not to get sidetracked or distracted. And this is Mercury in Pisces, folks. It's very interesting, so don't mind me as I stare off into space. What is that? I'm very creeped out right now, but it's actually kind of hilarious. But anyway, so with Mars ruling the nose, Venus ruling the throat, and with Mercury ruling the respiratory tract, all of them are in a very sensitive position right now. They're all immutable signs. And so this is one reason why a lot of us are going crazy, and a lot of us feel like we are losing our shit. And it's difficult to walk your truth if you don't know what that is. And so that's one reason why Mars is here in Gemini, trying desperately to make sense of something. But as we are going to see in the upcoming weeks, Mars is going to square Neptune, and then Mars is going to oppose Jupiter. And so there's going to be air represent, but there's definitely going to be a very strong notion of having to really walk your truth, despite the fact that you could be wrong. And to be honest, every truth is a half truth, as I say, and that's I believe a Hermetic statement. But yeah, a lot of energy and nowhere to put it. This is what Aries season does. This is what Aries season is all about, especially this new moon. Since in order for there to be change, there has to be stress in some way. What's up, Leanne? Thanks for joining us. Love you. So yeah, and for those who are just joining now, unfortunately, the Peace Dealer, he's actually currently with the Leo King, and Leo King's actually about to race, so we're going to send them some good vibes. But yeah, Colby, very true. And don't mind me if I cough throughout the stream, because like I said, a lot of the sensitive respiratory issues are being aspected, and especially true since I've got a lot of Virgo energy. But anyway, but This energy is talking about us really having to prepare for the new life, the new world ahead of us, where we've had so many difficult karmic life-changing transits. We could list them forever. We had all of these eclipses for the past year. We had Uranus finishing up in Aries, squaring the nodes. We had Saturn in Capricorn. We've had Jupiter in Sag, Neptune in Pisces. And so it's all coming to a head. And there's no coincidence that all of these planets are coming into their most powerful when we're starting a new Aries season. And so this is all about initiation. This is all about action. And Aries rules the skeletal muscle. It rules the adrenal glands, that which can move you and propel you forward, and which can also generate heat. Since Mars rules the choleric humor, which is yellow bile, which inspires the inflammation process. So it's time. Karma is over if you choose right. Yeah. With the interesting. So ascension flu. Yeah. Very good. Well, could be. And a lot of people in the community, and Mike has been, he did a story the other day where he broke down how a lot of feelings are being purged. And if you think about it, what's up, Lorinda? Thanks for joining. But this energy is very overwhelming because it has to trial by fire. And considering that the sun, which is thankfully here in Aries, where it's exalted rather than somewhere else, but with Saturn and Capricorn starting to square it, there's a lot of purge. There's a lot of transformation. Saturn represents the integrity of a being. It represents the bones, the structure, the connective tissue, the ability to absorb and utilize nutrients, and especially minerals and vitamins. And so there's this deep structural purging that's going on right now. And since the new, what's up, Jim Kincaid? But with the North Node as well, or rather the South Node moving over Pluto, this is ending a lot of karma. So the North Node moves pretty slowly. It's about less. It's I believe 18 months properly per sign. So really quickly before I lose my sanity. So 18 times 12 divided by 12. So it takes about 18 years for the North Node to cycle through a sign. So the last time it was on Pluto was about the early 2000s. I don't want to go too crazy with it, but yeah, I'm not going to go too crazy with it. But anyway, now that the North Node's here on Pluto and on Saturn, this is talking about the old dying completely and the new being formed. Since the South Node deals with manifestation in some ways, but it's not a good manifestation. It's sort of like the physical shadow, the representation, if you will. And so, speaking of shadow, you're going to see with this new moon, and then moving into next week as well, because this new moon, it's very interesting how this new moon is it's like a domino effect, and especially as the moon this weekend is going to move into Taurus, which is going to ground in a lot of this energy. So hold on till tomorrow, because this is going to be a little bumpy, but thankfully we're out of it now, actually, as we speak. So yeah, moving into tomorrow, things are actually going to be a little bit more pleasant. But regardless, there's an aspect of shadow, and I would like to remind for the peanut gallery, or I shouldn't say that. Is that insulting? I feel like the peanut galleries used to be insulting. But anyway, with this, there's this, and I actually just forgot what I was about to say. Interesting. Oh, so funny enough, right as someone tries to make me forget, there's a difference between darkness and there's a difference between shadow. And so everyone has a shadow side. If you think about something, say, for example, if you were to stand in the sunlight, and let's just say you could safely observe the sun, if you were to look at the sun, you would not see shadow. You would only see light. And so when something's in shadow, it does not mean that it is not of the light. It does not mean that it does not witness it. It just means that it is not directly involved. Because if you're in a shady tree, you can still see what's going on around you. And so darkness is an absence of light, where shadow is just the confirmation of light. And this is the difference between, shadow work and dark work, where there is true darkness and there is true evil in the world, which is fundamentally subjective, but it's more so impure, where, it's different, because I think that a lot of people want to excuse a lot of things that need to be worked on. And this Pluto aspect with the South Node is really going to be punishing those who do not change their behavior if it's unhealthy or if it's toxic or if it needs to be changing. And so the notion, so for Jamie, and the notion of the dark twin, this is something that a lot of people, including myself, got mixed up, because I thought that, if someone wasn't your twin flame, that they're a dark twin, when in reality, they're just your soulmate. They're just a person. And so I think that it's kind of a catch-22, since your twin flame is you, and likewise, we are all parts of each other. But the notion of the dark twin and people mirroring you is coming to an end. Or I shouldn't say that, but there is this great judgment-like energy. Judgment is ruled by Pluto in the tarot deck. And so Gemini life. Yeah, and so it's not about, because everyone, my shadow side is I have extraordinarily high standards, and it's sometimes unreachable for certain people. And I have to make sure that I walk with integrity. I have to make sure that I can maintain my own standards, which I can. So there's a notion of having to maintain a sense of dignity as well, since the savage Aries energy might make a lot of insecure people very childish. And the flip side of it is using this mature Saturnial energy to mature and to ground it in. Since Saturn represents growth over time, it represents longevity. Because remember, a Saturn cycle takes about 28 years. And so it's very important that we have to find balance. We have to find harmony, especially in this time, since with this very intense, very stress-based Aries energy, with this very chronic, very withering Capricorn energy, this can yield to a lot of full body stress, since Capricorn rules the bone, and Aries and Mars rules the skeletal muscle, and together they work well, since the muscular skeletal system is nothing more essentially than a bunch of third-class levers and maybe, I think, 2 first-class levers. And so yeah, but with this aspect, it's about strengthening yourself through resistance, but not resisting at the same time, since all this Pisces energy is reminding you that you are not in control. You co-create with the world, and by showing up and watching and following and doing and being in your path, that's what allows everything to come together. Because remember, I agree, Julie, but with this Pisces energy, it's important to remember that this is all out of our hands. Because remember, thankfully, the sun here is exalted in Aries, and Venus, thankfully, is also exalted here in Pisces. Or I think I said, did I call the sun exalted in Pisces? I don't know. Mercury, not officially retrograde. But with this Pisces energy, and especially with Venus, this is adding an element of beauty and fantasy and Venusian aspect to it. This is very twin flamey, because it relies on faith and not relying on the physical relationship to judge the connection, because the connection is what matters. And most above all, it's the connection to the self. So twins, a true twin, quote unquote, I'm going to use that lightly here, but a true twin mirrors their twin as needed. So when one twin's in a good space, the other twin's in a good space. And so it's important that you maintain your self-respect, your self-dignity, your self-essence, if you will, your independence, because that is the way that you can form a relationship. Because remember, you can't have a relationship with another person unless there is another person. Remember that. So, and the only way to be with someone of the same value and worth is you have to be patient. And this is very faith-based, and especially true since Jupiter is going to retrograde, and it's going to retrograde the same day that the sun's squaring Aries. And so yeah, and Chiron and Pisces ties into this, because remember, this is the first time that all of these planets, including Venus and the sun, technically have been in Pisces. And so there's this very strong notion of letting go of the past, since Chiron and Aries initiates a new cycle. And so we have to honor that, and we have to be able to move forward rather than moving backwards. Yeah, Tanya, that I can't say that's true. Obviously, I'm not the spokesperson, but to me, that doesn't make sense, since that wouldn't make sense, because there would be no growth. It would be stagnation, essentially. But yeah, good things take time, as Calypso said. And to be notion, I've been kind of personally trying to understand if everyone is a reflection of you in terms of vibration. But sometimes I can, because it's like if you were, if some enlightened monk was kidnapped by, I don't know who, someone, anyone, a government, anyone, and put in a jail cell filled with, low vibrational people, were they attracting that? Is that a thing? Of course, this is a hypothetical, so it's kind of, but anyway, there's a notion of really having to make sure at the very least, do you deserve the treatment that they are giving you? Do you give yourself the same treatment? A good rule of thumb is if if a friend would your friend tolerate the same talk that you give to yourself? And if the answer is no, then you cannot do it to yourself. What's up, everybody? Thank you all for being here. ISIS kidnaps monk. That wouldn't surprise me, to be honest. Yeah, but thank you all for being here. Just want to quickly check the time. Oh, we're doing pretty well. It is ultimately in terms of perception. That is a good point, and that's really what all this Pisces energy and with this Aries energy is trying to get you to understand, since this Pisces aspect is completely and utterly out of your hands, while this Aries energy is completely hands-on. And Mars in Gemini is adding some fuel to the fire by trying to get us to think, by trying to get us to move out. Thank you, Jupiter Star. But so Lisa, to answer the question, yes, so your twin, I don't want to say this, but your twin is sort of the long term, where it's not about the end result that matters, but your twin will always be your twin, where soulmates can come and go based on the karmic lessons needed. For example, I had a few connections which very much so emulated my twin, but in the vibration, if you will, or at least the energy or the idea, but it didn't work out. There was no real synchronicity, and it was a test to see how well I could value myself. And so you have to really appreciate the fact that it doesn't matter who your twin flame really is. It matters about the connection to the self. That's what it talks about. We learn from soulmates. Well, a twin flame is a soulmate, but yes, that does. We all learn from each other. We are all soulmates. It can convince you for very long. Yeah. And there's this notion of if it's your twin, so what? Do they still love you? Do they still treat you with respect? Do they still acknowledge you in public? Do they still, acknowledge you as a friend? Because if they don't, then why do you want them? Why do you want them in a relationship? Why do you want them at all? Why do you want them as a lover? Soulmate doesn't always mean perfect. There's no such thing as a perfect relationship. The twin flame, to me, my idea notion of a perfect relationship is the twin flame journey, because it does bring out all of your weaknesses, all of your insecurities. And to be honest, you have to purge everything within in order for you to find a partner. And your twin flame mirrors you and does just that. They trigger you when you need it, but they also build you up when they need it. Of course, that does not mean you rely on them, but it's a notion of how you treat yourself. Yeah, doesn't matter. To be honest, I don't like talking too much about my journey, just because I feel like people can get too attached to one specific person. But in my current relationship with my twin, we're not on speaking terms. I don't want to see him. Last time I saw him, he wasn't treating me with respect. He wasn't good enough for me. He wasn't treating me fairly and kindly, and so I dropped his ass. And people need to do the same. People want to accept abuse, and they want to accept malpractice when they don't need it. And I thought I had to do it because I was a twin flame, and that's what it's all about. So stop listening to these romanticized notions of what it is, because all it is a self-activating process through another body in order to wake you up. And you'll always have the twin flame connection, but a relationship is not Leo. Love comes before relationships. But would you say opposite sun moons help with twin flame? I don't ever, when I go to someone's chart, when someone ever asks me if they are a twin flame, I tell them this every time. I cannot tell you are a twin flame. You are or you are not. That's one thing if you want to talk synastry and compatibility, which is one thing, but that's not specific to a twin flame aspect. Although I will say, in any major relationship, soulmate or otherwise, there will most likely than not be some sort of relationship. For example, actually, I don't even want to go too much into mine, but there can be some similarities, there can be some differences, and ultimately they parallel you. They finish your sentences. They they complete certain aspects about you. I don't want to say complete. Scratch that. They don't complete. They complement you. So yes, 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 yes. Thank you, Jupiter star. It's growing longer. We're going for length here. We got quality. Now we want quantity. Ha ha ha. But yeah, so, and this ties in with this new moon and this ceremony, because what we're going to do is we're going to raise our own vibration as an individual, which will not just open the door just for a romantic or a sexual partner, because that's not all that life is. Although there is an aspect of that, just keeping it real. But we have to really stand on our own. And I feel like a lot of people of a lot of walks of life, myself included, expect other people to change, when that's because if someone expected you to change for who you are, that would be rude. And so, but I mean, there is a notion of people walking with integrity having to be called out. But I want to encourage you all to remember that only you can really get yourself out of situations. That's not to reject help if it comes. That's not to reject asking for help, but you must be aware that if you are on a solo mission on a battlefield during war season, you are on your own. Will you stand or will you drown? And remember, what happens to the individual happens to the team. A chain is only as strong as its weakest length. Yeah, but there's very, 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 yeah, and God bless the Libra risings and the Libras and the seventh house suns. I realize that a lot of you guys really struggle with this. And for reference, I'm a first house double Leo Venus sun. So I'm very, very self-motivated. And one of my shadow points also is I can tend to kind of not be neglectful of other people, but if everyone lived their life as an Aries or a Leo, life would be so much more better. I'm sorry if that offends you, but the truth is there's an element in this full moon, or rather new moon, is really going to be invoking that, since we all have to be able to, stand on our own. And if we don't, if we are breaking out of a controlling relationship, they're not going to want you to leave. So it's not about being polite. It's about being real. And that doesn't mean, you have to be violent or gruesome or bloody or gory, but you must put up, some resistance to someone else if they are resisting you. If you are minding your own business, walking down the street, and someone is trying something, that is not your doing. You did not ask for that. So this is permission to do what you got to do. And again, it's not saying respond with violence, but certainly don't expect, things to get better if you don't make a change internally. And I think that many people don't want to hear that, especially people with water energy. And I have my Pisces moon on Saturn, so I hate confrontation when it's absolutely unnecessary. But you have to be, you have to place boundaries. If you do not place boundaries, life will walk all over you. And I don't want to say it will be all your fault, but you will have consented to it. And so I don't feel that anyone here will specifically be suffering, since I believe that if you're here to hear this message. So congratulations, snaps for you. Awesome. But the thing is, well, also with Libras and all that Libra energy, when they can break out of relationships and be happy being single, it's amazing. And so there's a notion of really having to embrace the fact that as a species, if you will, as a collective, we are all meshing together, but that can only happen when you are your own individual. If there's someone, who's bringing the team down, not to say that they should be shamed, because you can always train someone, but there is a notion of the elephant having to be called out. You must be able to embrace the fact that there is a standard. There is a standard, and I hate saying that, but, and it's not about perfectionism. It's not about living a spiritual lifestyle, but there is a notion of, walking with integrity. You can't just assault someone for no reason. You can't just force yourself on someone, because that's just inhumane. That's just, it defies quote unquote God's law. And I use that term very loosely, but to some people that isn't crossing a boundary. And so there's this notion of having to literally defend yourself, because you cannot, and that's not to say this is not going to happen to you, but there is a notion of you having to accept the fact that people will cross your boundaries. People will take your happiness if you allow them to. And so you must fight for yourself. You must fight for who you are and what you know. Joan of Arc, for example, after my spiritual awakening, shall we say, I understand Joan of Arc a lot more. For this little peasant French girl in the middle of nowhere gets a message from God that she is going to free the French and defeat the English, and she's like, what? And so, and of course she wasn't, a savage and a warrior. She did what she could, but apparently they say that she was the flag holder, but she was still on the front lines in battle. She, being a woman, was mocked and ridiculed by the Dauphin, the king of France, essentially. And at the same time, he relied on her because it was a crapshoot and it worked. And so there's this notion of really having to move forward and arrive as a victor. And, sadly enough, unfortunately, the story of Joan is tragic because it ended terribly for her. Absolutely awful. But, but she became a martyr. She became a saint. And she was, beaten, and she was raped, and her body was bloodied, and they put her on the stake, and yet she still, trusted in her faith. And so I don't even believe that we are going to be burned at the stake, or we are going to be, all these things are going to happen, but there is a notion of not being afraid to face the enemy head on and win, because there's a notion of victory. And of course, there is a Capricorn element to it. So there is going to be, a sort of a loss. I hate to say it, but it's not even going to be a loss. But, if you're losing fake friends who don't love you and support you, what the hell's, are they your friend? Do they support you through thick and thin, or only when it's convenient? Is that really a loss? Obi-Wan style, yeah. But there's a notion of not being afraid to spit in the enemy's face. I'm going to be honest. And personally, as a Mars and Libra, it's very difficult for me to make the first move. I always feel like it's because, it's civil, because if they draw first blood, then all bets are off, but it is what it is. Yeah, and God bless the Capricorns and the Cap Moons right now who have to go through a lot of this, because it's very intense. And even the Cap Risings who are feeling a lot of this physical melancholia aspect, which can be very stressful, very withering, very tiring on a whole body level. But how long have we been going? Okay, cool. So I think I'm going to go into planetwatcher.com, show what's going on, and then we're going to do the ceremony. And so if you have any personal things that you want to do, any oh wow, fun. Okay, so for anyone who was here earlier, I didn't know there was something moving on my screen. It was me on the other side, and it was blocked out. That's hilarious. Anyway, so I'm gonna go in there, and I can't remember what I was gonna say. Well, but yeah, but if you have a candle or anything fiery oriented, you're gonna want to do so. You want to get it. Sage doesn't matter, or nothing at all. But I always recommend making a ceremony a little bit more razzle dazzle, because it just makes it more fun. So that being said, let's go to screen share. So application window. All right, cool. And we can all see me, because I had some problems with this the other day. So let's see if it works. All right, cool. Okay, fantastic. Fantastique. Okay, so as we speak, the moon is 23 degrees, just passing over Pluto and Saturn. And so this is very difficult. This is very powerful, because remember, Saturn rules Capricorn, where the moon is in its fall, while Pluto rules Scorpio, where the moon's in its detriment. So the moon does not like either of these planets that much. They really, really, really don't want to, they really don't mesh that well. And to be honest, here in Aries, the moon is in a very, very detrimental position, since in metastrology as well, specifically, since the moon rules Cancer, it's very watery, it's very phlegmatic, it's very cold and clammy, if you will. And so here in Aries land, where it's very fiery, it's very robust, and it's the opposite of the water element, the moon here is very restless. So tonight you want to make sure that I really recommend exercise during this time, but you don't want to over fatigue yourself. So just enough to kind of burn off any extra energy, but definitely enough to inspire us and to burn this crap off, to be honest. And like I said, the moon here does not like Saturn, it does not like Pluto, and it's squaring the nodes. I almost forgot to mention that. So with this new moon, there's going to be a karmic change and a karmic in the direction that you want to move into, where the moon here and eventually the sun is going to make us choose between, okay, we have our identity and our authenticity. Great. Are we moving towards our sincerity? Or are we moving towards the bullshit? And so we want to move towards the sincerity. And so, but since Saturn is the ruler of Capricorn, there's an element of respect. So we have to make sure that we respect the things that we need to do, but at the same merit, not at the cost of our humanity. And so, um, also Saturn at the third or the 20th degree mark that just shifted in the other day, now officially conjunct Pluto, because that's close enough for me. And the south nodes here wedged right in between. This is dramatic. This is very powerful. And tying this in with the moon preparing to move into Taurus, once it does so, it's going to conjunct Uranus. It's going to trine over to Saturn, Pluto, and the nodes, as well as all this very amazing Pisces energy. So what's going on right now is that there's this very dramatic internal shift, since the sun represents your conscious, the moon represents your subconscious, and Pluto represents your unconscious. And the difference between is the unconscious is that which you cannot access, that which is not available for you. Where if you think about the sun or consciousness, that's your projector, which you can witness the environment as you are now. The moon and the subconscious is sort of like a library where if I asked you to think of your favorite color, you weren't thinking of it until I asked you to. Therefore, it came from your subconscious. But if I asked you what you were doing on your 11th birthday at 12:33 p.m., you probably wouldn't be able to answer that. And that's the unconscious, that which is stored but not recalled. And so there, and if you think about it, since Mercury here is sextiling all this Capricorn energy, this is bringing out deeply layered stuff. And Capricorn represents the world. It represents the government. It represents structures and foundations as well. And so with this Pisces energy, there's a lot of truth being revealed. And thankfully, we have Jupiter here at 24 degrees. Oh, what's up, Susie? But as the moon sextiles over to Jupiter, this is going to be great, because otherwise we would get completely steamrolled by this energy, just being honest. And I'm seeing a lot of people in the chat saying they're fatigued and tired, and I've been feeling it the same way too. And so with this trine, though, this is thankfully giving us a lot of support and a lot of opportunity for us to grow. And with this ninth house Jupiter influence, it's all about belief and focusing on the deeper meaning of things. And so as we kind of, I don't want to jump too far ahead, but since the moon is going to move into Taurus, this is going, again, I'm going to ground everything in. So the energy is going to get progressively more intense. Actually, it could go one of two ways. It could get more intense, but I think that it's going to plateau more or less. And as the moon moves into Taurus tomorrow, this is going to be when a lot of the things that are initiated today really ground in. So keep your eyes on the skies, as I say, or at least on the world, because there's going to be a lot of shifts. There's going to be a lot of independent-based fights and marches, and you're going to see a lot of people fight for their independence and for their right to be. And for reference, I don't want to draw too much attention, but there's some country that just today, and I can't recall which it is, but is now legally allowing for gay people to be stoned to death. And so, what's going to have to happen in that specific area is there's going to have to be some sort of revelation. And that's not going to say that's going to be violent, but there has to be change. People are getting more aggressive. People are getting more violent because they're getting frustrated because the control is being lost. And so you have to push forward. The only way out is through. And so this is definitely not the time to pull any punches. This is definitely not the time to inhibit yourself, since Mars, as we speak, is sextiling over to Chiron, giving us Brunei. Thank you, Lorinda. But the sextile to Chiron is giving us a lot of strength to speak our truth and to not be who we or to be who we are, no matter the cost. And so these people in Brunei, they're going to die because they are who they are. And there's this notion of not being afraid to do so. And there's this notion of also on the same merit, not being afraid to, not dying for your pride. But when who you are, part of your identity is repressed, you're not living authentically. And so you have to be able to really, really do what's necessary. And you have to be able to trust and believe that everything's going on, especially with all this Pisces energy, which is, difficult because I'm saying, this is warlike energy and people being stoned to death. But, with this Pisces energy, we have to believe that everything will be fine. And of course, that's not to say practical application cannot be applied, because remember, how can prayers be answered unless there's a physical change? And so that's what I feel a lot of this energy is bringing up. And there's, there will be solutions that I feel will have results that will end for the benefit of the good, for the benefit of love, which is what I fight for. But it's very cruel. And, people think that this is normal. People think that it's acceptable to hate based on who you are, what you look like, what your color is, who you love, your gender, your genitals. And so there's this notion of having to choose what you're willing to die for and how well you're going to commit to it. How often in movies do people, the main character or someone get captured and they have to hold on and not sell out? And, what I was thinking of is the Matrix trilogy, in which case, Morpheus in the first one, since he got kidnapped, he could either sell them out or he could stay true, and he chose to stay true, and he was rescued. But yeah, so thankfully what this Aries new moon is going to do, though, is it's going to bring about a very powerful change. So those who do not walk with integrity won't know what hit them. And so for those who have been real and authentic and true to themselves, God smiles upon you. And even if you lose your life, for example, there is a spot for you in Valhalla, as I say. These group rituals are changing the world. So what we're going to do today, not even specifically just for these people in Brunei, but what we're going to do is we're going to inspire everyone to liberate themselves, no matter what group they may happen to be in. And you don't even need to be in a group, because abuse can happen privately in one-on-one relationships. Men can be abused. Men can be abused by women. Everyone can be abused. There's the notion that with this Aries energy, it's not saying, deny the opposition you go through, but don't succumb to it. You must be able to fight, and no matter what your outcome is, you're still a winner. This is very, very savage, but it is what it is. That's a good idea, Calypso. I hope one day we can all do that. So I think this is where I'm going to go to the screen after I drink some more water. And so I want you all just to get comfortable. I would play some music, but I don't know what kind of music to play, and the audio quality would probably not be that good. So I want you all to listen to whatever music calls to you. And when in doubt, David the Leo King did do spiritual dance music yesterday, which was a very good mix. So if you need something, there's a piece there. But yeah. Oh, Jim, I like that. That's beautiful. Because, Joan, I actually believe Joan was a virgin. She was a pure virgin because she dedicated herself to God. And so there is this notion of having to sacrifice yourself for the higher good. But in doing so, you reach enlightenment, if you will. So definitely remember that. Yeah, Lisa, good point. Good point. The Sutin or whatever he is. We'll pray for him, but that's all we can do for him. All right, so stop that. We are here. All right, so as always, we are going to do deep diaphragmatic breaths, and whenever you inhale for X seconds, hold it for X seconds, and then let go for X seconds. So I recommend 10 seconds, but it could be difficult. So actually, now that I think about it, I'm probably going to go off camera once we start, just because it's not about the visual, it's about the energy. And to be honest, I recommend you close your eyes. Personally, I always recommend you close your eyes because it leads to better visualization. And unless you're looking at a candle, which is a very powerful technique for amassing fire energy, which is what we're going to be primarily using, but not required. We are going to be, there is going to be some physical exertion, nothing big, but we're going to be clapping or snapping or some sort of dance or something, since this is Aries. This is all about action. And we can even, let's write a mantra. We don't need to do, it's because this full new moon, it's not about wish fulfillment, I feel, although there is that aspect coming in, but I definitely want to give everyone a powerful mantra. And this is, and it's personal for you. And that's what this Aries energy is reminding you. Remember, whatever happens is based on you and what you can do and what you are not willing to do or lack thereof. So, and whenever you need fire, you can always just rub your hands together. So firmly exhale and inhale. All right. Yeah. And yeah, thank you, Calypso. Don't be afraid to leave a like on the button or leave a like on the like button because it's much appreciated. And I'm definitely going to go off screen because my sinuses keep shifting and changing every time I breathe. So find a rhythm that works best for you, and stick to it, because remember, it's about you. But don't be afraid to push yourself a little bit, since Aries energy likes to expand boundaries. So I'm actually going to go off camera. Oh, no. Off camera. All right, cool. Perfect. Here we go. And afterwards, I will quickly pull sign or cards for these signs. Cool. All right. So, and I don't want to go too long. So just continue to breathe at your own pace. And I'm going to spend a minute or two myself just to make sure that I can speak properly. Remember, you can't save the world if you can't save yourself. And I feel like many people, your intentions are good, but just remember, when oxygen masks are deployed, help yourself before helping the child. And so, as usual, I want to call the elements, but I really want to put a special emphasis on fire. So we're going to balance it out by focusing a lot of time on earth to ground it in. So if you are standing, sitting, laying, doesn't matter. Wherever your body is connecting to the earth, you want to just breathe down any stress into Gaia. And when you breathe in heavily satisfaction. And remember, peace can always be found within. And there's a time and a place, especially on the battlefield, but even when you're there, you can find your zen. And all we have is the moment. That's what this Aries energy is reminding us. So in this moment, you are here, you are grounding yourself in, and we are here collectively. Because remember, the team and the chain is only as good as its weakest link. And there are no weak souls here, not on Future Life. And so as we are here together, first, as we ground the elements in, remember to connect to yourself first. Every exhale that you feel from your diaphragm, feel the stress decrease by feeling it move into Gaia. Let yourself remember that you are connected to the Gaian consciousness and the collective consciousness always. So don't be afraid of trusting in that, and don't be afraid of giving Gaia your stress, because trust me, she can handle it. And so as we can now welcome in this element of air, Really feel the essence of life, the oxygen that flows through your blood, that comes from your lungs and allows you to fully integrate with your consciousness, your body, your environment. Remember, inhale positivity and lightness, and exhale stress. Remember, the earth element wants to be close to the earth, so let it be so. Stress is earthy technically, so let it fall to the physical. Let your physical stress fall to the physical. Remember, you are a spiritual being having a human experience, so no matter what you encounter, you can always remember your connection to the divine. Remember, you are responsible for you and no one else. It's one thing if people react a certain type of way, but you can always choose where you want to go from here, how you want the story to end. And of course, there is an element of fate, but there's also an element of will. And that's what this Aries energy is reminding us. And so let's call upon now the essence of water to soften things a little bit, to smooth things over, to smooth and release the past. Water is the element of cleansing, it's the element of elimination. It wants to remove, it wants to clear, it wants to wash. And so imagine a nice, gentle, cooling mist, if you will, a nice, subtle vapor that is taking the stress, the pain, the tension, the worry, the unhealthy emotion, the unhealthy relationships, the connections that you share from your heart, from your body, from your mind, and imagine it being brought out and drawn out through your skin into the air where it can be evaporated, where it can be dissolved. And this is going to be a very, very gentle mist where you almost don't even feel it. And this is cleansing your aura. This is allowing you to drain the old so you can welcome in the new. And when we spark off the fire, we're going to boil it all over. And so remember to find your cycle of breathing and stick to it. If you feel tears, if you feel weeping, let it out. Whatever emotion comes is neither good nor bad. It simply is, but you must honor it. That does not mean you hold on to it, but you recognize it, give it respect, and let it go. We've all had to overgo pain, and there is trial ahead, but that does not mean we will falter. This does not mean that we will lose. This does not mean that we are weak. We have had moments where we've fallen on the ground. We've had moments where we've had to get up, but by knowing how low you've been, you can only gain new heights. And really also focus on that exhale. Get that old air out. To make use of the full capacity of your lungs, you have to make sure that you exhale just as much as you inhale. Okay, so before we call on the fire element, this is where we're going to unite. So Let's picture a bonfire. Let's go tribal with this. Why not? So, in caveman times, fire was an element of life, and it still is to this day. It provides warmth and light and heat. It lets you cook food so you can think more and digest easily. It allows you to connect and to socialize, to keep animals in the cold and the elements away. And so, let's imagine a big bonfire where we are all here, we are all standing, we are all united, we are all in our prime. And so, as we're here within this fire, feel the warmth, feel the fire, feel the passion, and let it flow through you, let it flow through your body. And if you feel a burning sensation, then this is good. Because remember, when you develop an infection, your body develops a fever to heat it and to cook it. There is an element of purging that comes with fire. And as you feel this warmth and as you feel this heat move through you, feel the vapor start to, not painfully, but really start to evaporate, really start to take away the pain, allow it to steam over. It's interesting how, through heat, water can turn into something invisible. And so by honoring this fire, by honoring this Aries energy, by honoring our passion, and this fire symbolizes each of us as an individual, but also as a collective. So draw from this fire, draw from this sense of unity. In ancient times, on new moons and full moons, there would be celebrations, especially on a new moon. And so this is a notion about really celebrating the new fruits that we're walking into. And of course, we have to don our armor and show up, but that does not mean we are not to be victorious. And so thank you all for being here, because this fire is large and passionate and hot. And this is incredible because, we're all here now, and this is all encouraging us to grow as an individual, and we can all grow to strengthen each other at the same time. And so let this fire burn off this sogginess, this moisture, this extra, let it burn off the fatigue. And as a catch 22, you might feel a little bit tired after this, but through resting and through rejuvenation through your body, this is what's going to yield you for an even brighter tomorrow. So, you want to make sure that you think positively, but also remember that you want to use your energy wisely, especially as we get it closer to Taurus season. And so, as we're all here dancing around this bonfire, really, feeling the heat, dancing, it doesn't matter what you look like or even if you can dance. You know, this is just movement. This is just, ecstasy. This is kind of, like in a rave or a pit where people just kind of bash into each other, which isn't, much of a dance, I'll admit, but there is this notion of just movement. Get your frustrations out there. After this ceremony, I highly recommend exercise or going for a walk or really using your body. And even now, 44 watching now, beautiful. So, uh, just moving your body. It doesn't matter what it is, because obviously not everyone can be an athlete, but it's not about being an athlete. It's about doing what you need to do. Shout out to Wild Magi for beating their drum. Whatever inspires you, instruments, whatever notion of life which fulfills you, this is what you must be doing. This is what you must be calling. And so thank you all for being here. Thank you all for sharing this love. I feel it. And this is all about vitality. This is all about us breaking out of the old. You are not a victim anymore. And you might have been victimized, as we all are on some level, but you are taking responsibility for yourself. You are allowing yourself to be free, and you are allowing yourself to be all that you are without fear of rejection of yourself, because you love yourself without condition, and that's what allows other people to love you. So definitely, definitely, definitely don't be apologetic, and definitely remember that, my slogan is only love is real, because when you remember that and when you do your life as you need to do, as long as you are not infringing on someone else's life, that is what is going to yield to happiness. So thank you all for being here. Thank you so, so, so much. I want to close this energy off. I wish I had an instrument of some kind, but unfortunately, we will just have to visualize. So I want everyone to see this fire and just see everyone dancing, and you just want to envision it. And now imagine this fire getting golden and white, even where it's this beautiful metallic, and it's brighter and it's brighter, and this flame is going to banish and purge everything. And this flame does not hurt the righteous. This does not hurt you. If you feel any discomfort, this is banishing residual energy within. And also, now that we're here together and as a collective, let's send this out to the world. So let's share this fire with everyone. Someone shared earlier an idea of a flame around the world. Let's do that with a gold flame, which symbolizes love, the sun. And so let's imagine this world, everyone living in their truth and passion and not having to be punished for it, not having to be damned for it. But there is room for the righteous in the afterlife. And I'm going to say it, although I don't, necessarily believe in one specific afterlife. But that being said, there is a notion for those, blessed are those who, are meek and who will inherit the earth. So definitely don't be afraid to, yes, interesting. The unburnt. Yeah, that's right. So don't be afraid to wield your dragon because you are unburnable. And so you have to be able to really honor and really appreciate the fact that through trial you have overcome much. And this is the point now where you ride your dragon, you wield your sword, you do what is needed for you in order for you to be liberated and in order for you to find peace and respect, because that is your right. And your true friends, your true support network will never question who you are as long as you're being authentic and sincere and upfront with you. So your true tribe is out there. You are connecting. We are here now. We are here now. And, we are only growing. So thank you all for being here. Thank you for liking and sharing because it really helps us. And we're sharing this with the world. So this is all about us as a unit. And, there's power in small because there's more quality. So we are all, truly grateful to be here. We're all truly grateful that, this is just a good time, to be honest. I'm having a good time, and I hope you all are as well. And so to close off the ceremony, just imagine the world on fire. Literally. Just imagine the gold flame constantly surrounding the earth, because we are going to transpose it and move it worldwide and allow it to engulf forever. And it's solar powered, so it will be burning forever. So this is glorious. So thank you all for being here. Thank you all for allowing us to come together. And so I'm going to congratulations to us indeed. And so I want to thank you all for being here. I'm going to now officially close off the ceremony and move into cards for the chat. But yeah, as I said, Future Life will be turning into High Vibe TV very, very shortly. But in the meantime, I do have my daily health horoscope on Future Life, which I highly recommend you check out. And I get a lot of good reviews, so it might be behooving of you. And I also have a weekly general health horoscope, weekly Clo cards, as well as individual sun signs. So you definitely want to check me out on there and show me some love. But yeah, so thank you all for being here. I love it. I love being able to come together. So I'm going to be pulling for Sun, Moon, and Rising. So for Aries, Sun, Moon, Rising, this new moon being your new moon, it's going to interesting. We have the Freeze card. So if you could have one moment, what would it look like, Aries? What does this moment look like for you now? And how are you moving forward, or how are you holding yourself back? And we also have the Through card. So I feel like this is sort of like a ghostly element where maybe you're scared of the past coming back to haunt you, when this is your time, Aries. Be a savage and go for it. Ooh, interesting. Okay, so for Taurus, Sun, Moon, Rising, we have the Sword card. So for Taurus, get brave, get ready, because you are taking action and you are taking initiative. And don't be afraid to use your willpower to your advantage, because that's what will strengthen and sharpen your sword. So for Taurus energy, definitely make sure that you are not holding yourself back, because this new moon is sparking off a lot of opportunity for you to break out of a lot of very subtly manipulative situations. So don't be afraid of paying attention to them. And so for Gemini, Sun, Moon, Rising, we have the Erase card. So interesting. So for Gemini, Sun, Moon, Risings, this is an opportunity for you to really clean house when it comes to a lot of fake people, a lot of fake friends. Don't be afraid of cleaning off the friends list or doing what's needed in order for you to be happy. And this applies to all relationships and connections, not just friends ones, but this does talk about a lot of more so the collective as opposed to specific one-on-one Geminis. And don't be afraid to hit that like button too, like Wild Magi said. All right, so for Cancer, Sun, Moon, Risings, we have the windy card. So for Cancers, this is going to be an opportunity for you to really move forward into your true legacy, your true self, your true careers. And the windy card to me is new beginnings, a breath of fresh air, a very sanguine opportunity for you to really express yourself and find reward for it. So don't be afraid to speak your truth and put yourself out there, because by doing so, you will manifest a lot. And so for Leo, Sun, Moon, Risings, we have the windy card as well. And for you, we got the shot card. So for Leos, this is going to be a time for you to really don't be afraid to focus on your truth and what you know and believe to be true, because that is what's going to give you a lot of new opportunities for you to connect to the right people, to connect to the right tribe and the right relationships. So yeah, don't be afraid to put yourself out there, dear loves. All right, so for Virgo, Sun, Moon, Risings, we have the Maze card. Interesting. So for Virgos, I feel like this new moon is going to be very powerful, since this is talking about a deep transformation in your psyche and in your awareness and even in your primal desires. And so I feel like for Virgo, you're going to discover a new side of yourself that you're going to start to navigate, or maybe even come out of understanding who you are and what you desire and what you want for yourself, and to move out of the maze and move into something better. And so I feel like this is a message of new discovery, but also closing off the old and coming out of a lot of questions. Amani, I am a double Leo Pisces moon. And so for interesting. So for Libra, Sun, Moon, Rising, we have the Mirror card. How appropriate. This is very appropriate for Libra. And so I feel like for Libras, this is directly talking about new relationships and an aspect even of singlehood, depending on what side of the spectrum that you're in, where relationships are going to develop, deepen, or they're going to sink or swim. And I feel like this Mirror card is talking about you coming into a true self-understanding, allowing relationships to fall away peacefully or allowing them to come together. And even if you're single, this is you finding true happiness in yourself. So don't be afraid to give yourself, some love in the mirror. Okay, so for Scorpio, Sun, Moon, Rising, we have the Return card. Interesting. North Node, I don't necessarily look to, but I mean, if it fits with you, then it fits with you, I suppose. So Scorpio is the Return card. So for you guys, this new moon is talking about maybe you looking back to the past and the way that you used to live, and don't be afraid to move forward in the new direction. Because Scorpios have to understand that you have to change your lifestyle in order to change your life. So the Return card is the reminder that if you were happier in the past, what made you happy and how can you recreate it now, where maybe certain events came to an end, certain relationships ended. So it's not about pure nostalgia, but it is about honoring the good times and creating them in the now. So we've got next Sagittarius. So for Sag, Sun, Moon, Rising, we've got the Illusion card. Interesting. So for Sages, this new moon is talking about not thinking that you're not amazing, not thinking that you're awesome. And, there's one thing where it's egoic if you're trying to say you're better than someone else, but don't be afraid to sniff your own stuff, if you know what I mean. For Sages, I think that you have to really understand that you are coming out of a lot of illusions, but at the same merit, you don't want to fall for any. So just remember your truth. And while you might be going crazy, it's not necessarily an illusion. So remember, your truth is not other people's truths. So for Capricorn, Sun, Moon, Risings, we've got the Fiery card. Very powerful. Conflicts. And I usually don't get that with this card, but this is talking about a sense of internal worth, internal passion, where you can say fuck it and leave the dead-end job that you've invested years in for, but you might not necessarily get a reward for it. But the reward is it of itself, the action and not the result. So don't be afraid to move on. Don't be afraid to start something new. Express yourself very passionately, Capricorn. And if something falls away, it wasn't in your highest honor. So Aquarius, sun, moon, or rising, we have the change card. So for you guys, this is talking about shifting your perspectives, the light and dark within you, or I should say light and shadow within you balancing out. So don't be afraid of getting in touch with all the voices in your head. And don't be afraid of getting in touch with other people, but just remember that not everyone has the same perspective as you. So it's one thing to understand someone else, but don't assume that they are necessarily right. And for Pisces, sun, moon, rising, we have the Mace card as well, which was the same card for Virgo. We also have the Dash card. So if you're for Pisces, I feel like this is you talking about really manifesting your self-worth and coming out of a lot of confusion, very similar to Virgo, actually. And so I feel like for both Pisces and Virgo, this is talking about living in true. It's sort of like if you were lost alone in the maze, what would your ideal maze look like? Which is interestingly enough, which I'm getting for Pisces, but there is a sense of protection to this card where you might not necessarily want to go to the other end, but this is the moment where you're reaching the end, Pisces, and you're going to be sprinting out the other side. So get ready to make important moves, especially if it relates to your self-worth and your value and even your money. And so the final card that I have for everyone before I bid you all adieu, we have the sword card for everyone, just like Taurus. So definitely don't be afraid to challenge yourself, push yourself, use your willpower to break out of the matrix, if you will. Don't be afraid to stand in your worth, and don't be afraid to sacrifice, old connections that don't work. Because this is a very powerful card. This is a very, very sharp card, literally, where you can cleave connections very easily, but you also don't want to nick yourself. You don't want to make sure that, and the only way to do so is if you hold your truth back. So remember that you might cut some people with it, you might hurt some feelings, but that ultimately doesn't matter in the end. This is Aries season. And on this Aries new moon, you are manifesting everything. Or at the very least, you are initiating you who will manifest everything. So that being said, I will be closing out from here. I want to thank you all for being here. Thank you for joining, subscribing, checking us out all on Future Life. There's 7 of us, and we really, really hold it down. And I encourage you to be a part of the ride. So I definitely thank you all for being here. And catch me on Future Life. And until next time, beloved, always remember that only love is real.